What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in with some more Destiny 2 Forsaken news. So we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff you might want to know between now and when the Forsaken DLC launches. We're going to break down all of the weapons you currently have in your second or third slots that are actually going to be moving to the Kinetic slot. We've also got a bit of a warning and a notice about some of the changes that will come to weapons on August 28th, definitely worth bearing in mind. We're going to talk about new drop sources for infusion materials for year 2, how matchmaking works inside of the Blind Well. We're going to talk about the redesigned director for the game, a new hand cannon coming in Forsaken, which is absolutely brutal. We'll talk about that in just a moment. A glitch that may give us a small hint to the Cade spicy ramen quest. We're going to cover legendary weapon ornaments, Cade's chests moving into year 2, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you guys do enjoy the video, a like below is very much appreciated. Be sure to check out my Forsaken DLC giveaway, which I will link down in the description below. But without further delay, let's get into the new stuff. So the first thing we're going to talk about, for any of you guys wondering about the Exodus Crash strike, DMG did say on the forums that Exodus Crash will return in Season 4, and we'll get more information when possible. So of course Exodus Crash was removed from the Nightfall and the Heroic Strike rotation. You can still get it, I believe, in the normal strike playlist, but it was essentially removed because Bungie wanted to rework a number of elements inside of the strike. So we'll have to wait and see which changes we get for the strike. Of course, we did originally see a supposed Siva version of this in the E3 build last year. No idea whether that could influence any changes inside of this strike or whether it will purely be mechanical, but we will be getting it back soon nonetheless, which will also mean we can finally access the Nightfall specific loot for Exodus Crash. Next though, Bungie confirmed all of the kinetic changes that we'll see on August 28th. So these are weapons which are all currently in the heavy slot, and they're going to be moving to the kinetic slot. So we have the Balagant shotgun, Shepherd's Watch, which of course is a sniper rifle. We've got Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun, Alone as a Guard from the Leviathan raid, the Perfect Paradox shotgun, the one that comes from the quest on Mercury. Then we've got the Frigid Jackal, as well as the Silicon Neuroma. All of these are going to be in the kinetic slot as of the 28th of August, which is pretty interesting. I'm particularly excited to try things like Perfect Paradox and Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun in the primary slot. That's going to be very interesting. Of course, there are a bunch of other changes as well. Many other sniper rifles will move into the secondary slot. You'll also have fusion rifles in the secondary slot, and we're going to be able to play around with all of these changes before the DLC launches on the 28th. Let me know any of your thoughts about that, but somebody did ask, any confirmation what will happen to weapons that overflow due to the slot changes? If my kinetics are already full and my Masterwork Hawthorns with 7k kills tries to switch slots to an already full kinetic slot, what happens to it? And DMG does say it'll go to the Postmaster. We're cooking up some in-game messages to warn folks, make sure you have some open slots, and try to clear out your Postmaster before the 28th of August to avoid the loss of any items. So it's actually something pretty important to bear in mind, especially if you have a lot of gear on one character or a full Postmaster. You're going to want to make sure you have some slots available for these weapons to actually switch around, and that you have Postmaster space, because anything which tries to switch and can't may go to the Postmaster, and then of course if the Postmaster was full, there would be a risk that you could potentially lose some gear that you actually own. The very important stuff, bearing in mind, Bungie do say they plan to give us official notices about this in the game as well. Next though, when it comes to upgrading and infusing gear inside of the DLC, we will be using Planetary Materials to actually upgrade them. So these are things like the Dusklight Shards or the Simulation Seeds, the additional Planetary Materials. We're going to start needing these in order to infuse, which is actually kind of a big deal. Infusion is definitely going to become a more important decision. It's going to use more currency, but Cosmo did confirm that we'll be able to get destination materials from chests, bounties, adventures, and patrols, as well as just picking them up from destinations if you're into that. So as well as us actually requiring a lot more of these materials, they will be creating more opportunities to get them dropped. And I should also mention that they've said similar things for Masterwork Cores 2. They want to have some guaranteed drop sources so that you know where you could get a bunch of cores every week or whatever. Next though, let's talk about the Blind Well, a new kind of PvE mode inside of the Dreaming City. And of course it's very similar to the Court of Oryx, Escalation Protocol type things, even Archon's Forge. T-Rex actually said hopefully it's instanced away from things like public events, and Dan Callan from Bungie said, I think it's safe to say that the Blind Well has its own dedicated dead-end public space. There won't be any additional events overlapping, and everyone in there should be there for the event. event. Somebody asked, will we get more than 3 people into the zone easily? And Dan said, it depends on your definition of easy, but we have intentionally designed it to make sure that players who are in the space are there explicitly to participate in the event. Compared to Archon's Forge, you'll probably match up with more players more often. So essentially, they've kind of put this blind well into a side wing of the Dreaming City. It's not somewhere where you've got public events and other things overlapping. It is a dedicated space. You may even need particular currencies and things to get into the space to actually enter into the blind well mode itself. So it sounds like the matchmaking has been designed a little bit more intelligently, and from what they're saying, the way that they've done it should mean that you can find more players actually intending to do that event in that space much more often. We also saw in the recent Dreaming City trailer a whole bunch of the gear which comes from the blind well, and this is the stuff that has the general Dreaming City theme. Some really cool looking weapons. We've seen some of them in action in Gambit gameplay and things like that as well. So I think blind well will definitely be an activity which players want to clear out. Up next though, we did see the redesigned director map for the Forsaken DLC. I think some cool things to note is that the Vanguard and Crucible now have kind of these quick icons underneath Earth, and you also have Gambit there in between them. Then on the right hand side we have both the Tangled Shore and the Dreaming City, and it looks like they've kind of comfortably managed to get all of this stuff into the UI. Some folks were asking about Leviathan. Where is it? Because it's no longer on the map. DMG said, fret not, you'll access the Leviathan and the raid letters via Nessus. So you'll actually have to select Nessus and go into the Nessus map, and then you'll see Leviathan in there, which is kind of similar to what you see on Earth with the farm actually inside of the European Dead Zone map. So Leviathan will still be available on the director, but of course they have confirmed there are currently no plans to upgrade the power levels or anything like that. Now, let's talk about a new hand cannon that a lot of folks are speculating will come from the competitive Crucible playlist. So we've actually seen the hand cannon inspected. It's called Luna's Howl, and you can see that it has a unique perk called Magnificent Howl right there. Now it is a 180 RPM hand cannon, but the Magnificent Howl perk actually allows the weapon to get bonus damage after 2 quick hits with the weapon. Could potentially be that it's 2 quick crit shots. So if we look at this clip right here, you can see they land the first shot and you actually get an LED light on the side of the weapon. And when they land a second shot really quickly, the other side lights up and then they get bonus damage. So you see them hit 2 crits for 57 each right there. And after the second crit, they get a body shot, which is actually 88 points of damage. And that appears to be enough to actually 3-tap this Guardian right here. But of course, this is a 180 RPM hand cannon. It's the fastest firing hand cannon, and it has a kill time of around about 0.5 seconds. So this is going to take Guardians down incredibly quickly. You're getting into that kind of a last word territory. And like I said, it looks like this will be the competitive hand cannon for Season 4. You'll also notice it is essentially the model of the Lord High Fixer hand cannon from Destiny 1. So this thing looks absolutely beastly, and it looks like it's going to be immensely strong. So if you're fancying the looks of that thing, get ready for some competitive inside of Season 4 potentially. Next though, let's talk about some stuff in game right now. A lot of people have been asking me about the Spicy Ramen quest that I mentioned. So of course this is something that we've seen purely in the database. We do know a little bit more about it now. We know that the Cade Spicy Ramen quest is actually a milestone, and so it seems reasonably likely that this will appear on a reset of some sort. We've also seen the ramen shop in both the tower and in the last city kind of social space. Lapel Adil actually had a bit of a glitch right here. Between loading into missions, they actually had this kind of quest icon pop up. And you can see that it is essentially the orbit director icon for the new solstice space in the last city. So there's potential that this could be linked to the Spicy Ramen quest, and that could be why this option is actually in the director to allow you to load into the space for the quest, if that's a thing. It could also simply be that it's a glitch, and we're seeing it pop up between their story missions, and it is actually the story missions for Solstice of Heroes themselves. But as I mentioned, we do know that it is a milestone, the Spicy Ramen quest. However, we have no idea what the rewards could possibly be. There are some classified emblems in the database, but there isn't anything else currently which is super obviously the reward for this. It could simply be classified. So I'd be curious to hear any theories that you guys might have. Of course, we may not actually get this quest pop up until after the update on the 28th. Right now, it's anybody's guess really. Now to round up a few things though, DMG said, what happens to Cade treasure chests and maps after update 2.0 drops? He does say if you have a map in your inventory, the chest will be available even after the update on the 28th, but it will grant the same rewards you're used to. The odds and ends though will no longer be redeemable for Glimmer, and of course after Forsaken goes alive, Cade won't actually be there in the tower to redeem them with. So it's going to be sad times, man. On the subject of collections, Bungie had said that past season Eververse items which have not been acquired will not display in the collections interface. This prevents players from having incomplete collections that they cannot complete. And one of the Bungie devs did confirm that it will be the same for Year 1 Vanguard, Crucible, Trials, and Iron Banner items. They're hidden if you never got them, because as a rule of thumb, collections will never show an item that you can't get. There will be some that we missed, but we did our best to catch them all. So essentially, if there is something that you cannot obtain and you didn't obtain, they're going to try to avoid it showing up in the collection so that it doesn't taunt you for the rest of history, I suppose. Which I guess is kind of nice, really. Josh Hamrick did confirm to my buddy Aeronite, though, the Masterworks right now are half of the value of what they will be after the DLC, so they're capped at 5, and the new Masterworks will go out to 10 points, so that's an additional 5 points of every stat, just to clarify that this isn't like a purely cosmetic or visual thing. Masterwork stats will absolutely be improving, they'll be twice as good. So that's some good confirmation as well. But Bungie had said that legendary weapon ornaments will also be added into Eververse inside of Season 4, so just like exotic ones, we will now be seeing ones for legendary weapons. And I thought this is a pretty interesting change. I would guess that the ornaments we'd get would be for pretty pinnacle weapons, so maybe like that competitive hand cannon we pointed out. Maybe if there is a exclusive Vanguard weapon you have to reach a really high rank or do something crazy, I guess it would be those kind of weapons, the weapons that are featured at vendors, the ones that a lot of people would be focusing on, but maybe they'd also add ornaments for weapons that become very, very popular and a lot of people are using as well. I'm all for it personally, as long as they're accessible and, you know, there's different ways to obtain them. More options is always good in my opinion. But guys, that is going to summarize the video for today. So let me know your thoughts down below. Just a couple more weeks and we finally get into the first week of madness with that August 28th update. So we're getting super, super close. But if you have enjoyed the video, guys, a like below is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see a lot more Destiny 2 content. Turn on notifications if you don't want to miss out on any Destiny news stuff. Thank you guys so much for all of the support you've shown me on the channel recently. As always, I really do appreciate it. It makes a massive difference here. So once again, thank you for tuning in and thank you for all of the kind support that you've shown me here. For now though, whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.